Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host Anthony Sassano and today's the 30th of December 2021. Alright everyone, so today is going to be a special episode of the Refuel. I don't have any news in front of me, it's just me on the camera, and I mentioned yesterday that I'm going to be recapping the year of 2021 as this will be the last Refuel I do for this year. So we'll be starting off by kind of like, obviously starting from January of this year, going all throughout this year. I'm just going to give my thoughts on what happened, all the big things in the Ethereum ecosystem, but also in the crypto space more widely. And also going into next year, what I expect to happen as well. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. 2021's been a funny year, I think, overall, really. I think most people got things wrong, like with their predictions. There are a lot of things that people thought, okay, well, this was going to happen or this was going to happen. And it ended up being like completely wrong. And I think one of the major things of that was basically around the market. Everyone expected, we'd have like a massive bull market all throughout 2021. We'd have a blow off top towards the end, and then we'd go into a bear market again. I mean, I don't think everyone expected that. It's just like that was the consensus that I saw kind of play out in the Twitter sphere and in other places as well. So I guess in January, ETH started off in a pretty weird place. I mean, it was still $700. Like, can you believe that? I think on January 1st, 2021, ETH was $730. And only a few weeks prior to that, it was it had been like 400 or something. So nothing obviously to scoff at, nothing to kind of like write home about, of course. But then it ended the month at $1,400, almost all-time high there, which was crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure it did reach all-time high in January, or it broke its old all-time high in January, which was like 3 years after it had broken the all-time high in January of 2018. So that was obviously a really big deal. But it's just funny like how quickly it moved. I mean, we came off 2020 where it was all about DeFi and all about kind of like Bitcoin because, there was the institutions kind of piling into it. And ETH kind of like took a back seat. And people were like really bearish on ETH. And then ETH just kind of like teleported to its old all-time high in January. And then obviously over the next few months, it went into a crazy bull market and ended at, in May of 2021, ended up at $4,400 and then came back down to $1,700, then went back up. And, it's been crazy. It's been like a yo-yo essentially. And the price is $3,700 right now or something like that, $3,800. So it really has been just a massive kind of like yo-yo for the price. But price obviously wasn't the only thing that happened in 2021. I think the other massive narrative that played out that I think a lot of people didn't see coming was the alternative L1s. Obviously, there are a lot of people who thought that they would kind of like fail and fail to get any traction, that Ethereum was fine, that Ethereum would scale before any of these things could get traction. And to be honest, I was one of those people. With the layer 2, I understand why it's taken longer than everyone kind of like thought it would, but it definitely has, the fact that it's taken longer has also given rise to these alternative L1s because they've kind of like played with the narrative and the marketing of, Ethereum can't scale, the fees are really high, come use us, we're cheap. But as I mentioned yesterday, I actually think that regardless of Ethereum's high fees, these other L1s basically would have taken off because of the fact that they used the tried and tested playbook of liquidity mining, which came from 2020, where everyone kind of saw, well, if you put token incentives on something and you do it right, you can get lots of liquidity really, really quickly, and it can lead to price rise for the asset. For your kind of like native asset that's got to do with the project or the chain or whatever, and it's really good marketing and even business development as well from that perspective. So I think that playbook has kind of like been refined to be an art at this point, where everyone's just basically copying everyone else and being like, okay, well, this is how we do it, this is how we grow. And as I mentioned yesterday, I think the L2 should be focusing on this going into 2022. But yeah, that was a big theme of 2021 that certainly most people didn't see playing out. And I think it was because a lot of the people that were around earlier this year and kind of like later last year, they weren't new. They were like people that had been around since the last bull market, and they'd seen the other L1s and like how much traction they didn't get. For example, all of them basically, even the biggest one like EOS from the 2017-2018 era didn't go anywhere. And so I think there's a lot of hangover from that where people were like, okay, well, they failed, there's nothing that, none of these L1s can succeed, it's all Ethereum, let's just focus all our efforts there. Obviously, I still believe that it's mostly Ethereum, over the long term, but these other L1s have really worked to kind of like capture the mind share of a certain group of certain communities, like especially as the asset goes up in price, you really do build a community quite nicely because of that. So that's one theme. I think the second theme that most people didn't see of 2021 was NFTs. They took off massively, right? Like we didn't only have like one NFT mania, we had many, and I think we're kind of like going into one right now. To be honest, like NFT volumes are spiking up again. It really feels like the NFT market it seems to kind of like play a bull and bear market much faster than the normal crypto markets. Like you could argue that since May, ETH it hasn't been in a bear market, but it's been in a sideways market, right? It's just kind of neutral. It's not really doing anything. I mean, yes, it went to a new all-time high of 4,900, but that wasn't really much higher than the old one. And then it came back down again. And we've just been in this range from like 3,000 to 5,000 for a while now. And, as I mentioned plenty of times now, I think January and Q1 is going to be really, really good for the overall market in general and for crypto. But yeah, since May, ETH just hasn't really done much in terms of like price movement. And, I'm used to it as I've been in this ecosystem for a long time now, but a lot of people out there see this sideways move and then they see all these other assets kind of pumping up and they're like, oh my God, why am I, sitting in ETH? I could be chasing these other things. That's a whole obviously different discussion. That's got to do with, how to make investments and how to do investing there. But I think that the NFT mania is definitely something that most people didn't see coming. I knew NFTs were going to be kind of like a big deal. But no way did I think that they were going to grow as fast as they did. And I also didn't see a lot of the FUD coming either. Like people legitimately think NFTs are scams. Like not the actual scammy NFTs. I think all NFTs are scams. There was a lot of concern about the environmental impact of NFTs. Some of the L1s like Tezos harped on about that and were actually able to get a bit of traction in the NFT ecosystem by doing that. Don't think it really helped their asset price too much though, which is funny when you kind of like compare Tezos to some of the other alternative L1s and how kind of the market treats them. It's definitely a funny beast there, but they did succeed in getting a lot of people to go there who are environmentally conscious because Tezos is obviously a proof of stake blockchain and not a proof of work one. And then, you had basically what happened with NFTs reminded me of what happened with ICOs in 2017, where people were doing the kind of like gas wars in order to get into these NFTs, to get into the mint, in order to immediately resell it on the secondary market for like 2-3x or more profit. I mean, sometimes it was much more than that. There was some that kind of like went 10x instantly. And it reminded me very much of ICOs in 2017, where people were doing the same thing. They were having kind of like gas wars, getting into the ICO and then waiting for it to be listed on an exchange because there wasn't actually really any DEXs back then. There was no Uniswap or anything. There was Ether Delta, but that was an on-chain order book exchange that was really cumbersome to use. It required people to kind of actively manage their liquidity and things like that. So it was a lot harder, but still people did it, right? You would hope for a centralized exchange listing and then you could flip it. And it worked for a little bit, but then obviously the mania subsides, the money runs out, and the market kind of crashes from there. And ICOs crashed really, really hard. I mean, a lot of them went down 90%. Many of them went down 99%. It's just, and most of them haven't even recovered. So, pretty much like a lot of wasted money there, really. And I think the same thing happened with NFTs. There were a lot of profile picture NFTs that kind of, started coming out after the success of CryptoPunks and Bored Apes and things like that. And I think NFTs, I think it's been a good thing for NFTs that they've had these manias because it brings a lot more attention, brings a lot more people into the ecosystem. And as I've mentioned plenty of times, I do believe NFTs are going to be the best onboarding vehicle, or at least one of the best onboarding vehicles that we have throughout not 2022, but like pretty much throughout the adoption cycle of crypto. Now, other than NFTs, I think the next biggest theme, if I was to pick one, is basically how many people got things wrong. Because I think that's actually a theme. Because there were if you compare the start of the year and what people thought how 2021 would play out, and to kind of like where we are today, most people got it wrong. And I think the biggest thing that people got wrong was around DeFi and how DeFi tokens would perform. At the start of 2017, at the start of 2021, everyone was bullish on DeFi tokens except a select few. I know Degen Spartan's been kind of like bearish on them for a while, but everyone was really, really bullish on them. The logic was, okay, DeFi tokens had a really awesome run in 2020 through DeFi summer. Now they're cooling off a bit, but they're just getting ready for their next kind of like leg up. All the institutions and traditional finance investors are going to come in, they're going to buy up these DeFi tokens, and it's all going to be well and good. And then what happened was, most DeFi tokens, not all of them, but most of them, especially the ones that people thought were safe, kind of blue chips like Aave and SNX and Wi-Fi and all that sort of stuff, they got wrecked, like absolutely wrecked against USD, and they got even more wrecked against ETH. They've severely underperformed ETH. I think Aave from the top is down 80% against ETH or something crazy, and I pick Aave because that's, quote unquote blue chip. Nothing to say of the project, right? The project is awesome. Just the token price has suffered majorly across like all of these assets, not just Aave, but a lot of the different DeFi assets. So that was definitely a big thing that people got wrong in 2021. And people are betting now that 2022 DeFi is going to kind of have a renaissance, and there's going to be lots of people bidding it up because it's just so undervalued. I actually think that there will be some of that, but it's going to be very hard to pick a winner because there's so many assets in crypto now, not just on Ethereum, but on other blockchains, that it just becomes so incredibly hard for an investor to kind of like put their money in something and have conviction on it. Like, for example, if you are completely new to crypto, you come in, you're like, okay, well, I want to invest in something. And then you kind of, how are you going to evaluate that? Like, what do you use? You use, like for traditional investors, you typically use price to sales, price to earnings ratios, which DeFi has a lot of. You can go to Token Terminal's website and you can actually see all the DeFi coins measured against each other. And then there's other things kind of like if you're a meme-based investor, which a lot of people are these days, thanks to Wall Street bets, you would kind of like place a bet on what the thing is that you believe to be like have the best memes or kind of like have the best attention and will continue to have the best attention or the most attention going into 2022. But other than that, it's very, very hard to pick something to invest in, especially with all the information asymmetry that exists within crypto, all the misinformation, or everyone's chilling their own bags, everyone trying to justify things. I mean, the amount of things that people kind of like shilled through 2021 that went nowhere because it's just like no one bought into it was crazy. And speaking of kind of like a meme-based investing, I think another thing that in 2021 that played out was the dog tokens, right? And not just the dog tokens is the theme, but really the rise of kind of like meme-based investing wasn't just it wasn't just kind of like limited to crypto. It also happened in the traditional markets with GME and kind of like a few other stocks out there. But then it translated into crypto with Dogecoin and Shiba and a few others out there like SafeMoon and stuff like that. That stuff happens typically like late stage of a market, and it basically preceded the massive dump in May. That's because everyone felt like really rich. There was a lot of funny money coming in. People had stimulus checks, all that sort of stuff there, and that was all coming in, and that led to this kind of like meme-based pumping going on in many different tokens. That was another big thing of 2021. Now, I think that covers most things in terms of like the higher level themes. Maybe I'm forgetting things. I think like DAOs have definitely come further in 2021 than they were last year, but they still got a long way to go. Social tokens had a little bit of attention, but they've still got further to go. I think L2s was obviously a big theme. Actually, how can I forget about L2s? I think L2s was a huge theme of this year, but only in probably the latter half of the year, not so much the former half. I think, Arbitrum going live, Optimism going live, after saying they were going to go live in March and then delaying until like July when Uniswap V3 went live on Optimism, and then not removing their whitelist until like 1 to 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And then you had Arbitrum going live too, but then like this and the ZK stuff obviously slowly coming out, and none of the kind of like L2s have done tokens yet or anything like that. So it's been a bit of like a soft launch for these L2s, but they've still been a big theme. Like I guess like scalability in general has been a huge theme for Ethereum in 2021. It's been basically what everyone's been focused on due to the high gas fees. And as I've said before, I think 2022 is going to be a really good year for layer 2. I think all these L2s are going to get tokens. I think they're going to do much better in the marketing and BD departments because of it, and there's going to be a lot more opportunities to make money on there, a lot more apps kind of get onboarded onto there, which is going to be really, really cool to see play out as well. And I think related to that, we also had the rise of Polygon. As you guys know, I'm an advisor to Polygon, not just trying to shill my bags here, but Polygon POS chain rose like really rapidly. I mean, it's funny because Matic came from a position where it was known as this scaling thing, but no one really knew what they did, right? Until they rebranded to Polygon. They were working on Plasma. They've been around since like 2018, I believe, or maybe even earlier than that. Then they rebranded to Polygon. They spun up this POS chain, and it basically acted as a nice, I mean, people call it sidechain, some people call it layer 2, but basically a nice environment for people to go in and experience the EVM without the high fees. And that's what really kind of like kickstarted all these other alternative L1s to kind of like copy Polygon's playbook, because they saw, okay, well, they did liquidity mining, they got all this kind of liquidity over, and their token went absolutely bananas. I mean, I think Matic's token price was something like 2 cents at the beginning of the year. Now it's like $2.50. So I think the L1s more so copied Polygon's playbook than DeFi Summer's playbook, but I think DeFi Summer's playbook kind of like set the stage in terms of liquidity mining and all that sort of stuff for everything else to kind of like copy it from there. And it works as a really good kind of like tool, right? Because we've seen the rise of Polygon. And obviously Polygon has done a lot more than that. They don't actually have native Matic rewards in any kind of like aggressive fashion anymore. It's really just like their business development and their marketing and kind of like acquiring these other ZK teams and stuff like that. That has been really, really good for them. So that was another big theme of 2021. And I think if I had to kind of like summarize the whole year, taking into account all these high level themes, taking into account the price action, what the market's done in 2021, I would say that 2021 was the year that crypto basically jumped the chasm. And we've jumped from basically this early stage nerdy technology that only a few people paid attention to the early kind of like adopters going on to mass adoption, which isn't, here yet, but we're basically in the early adopter phase where this technology went from being, okay, well, maybe this will work out to, okay, this is going to change the world. That's 2021 to me. Doesn't matter how many things people got wrong, how many things people got right. Doesn't matter about all the other themes that I spoke about. What matters to me is like the overall kind of thing, and the most important thing, and that is the fact that we've kind of like not gone mainstream, but we've crossed over to a point of no return. It's basically like crypto is going to succeed. A lot of people believe that, and there's no going back from there. So I had a lot of fun this year. I actually think 2020 was a better year for me than 2021. I mean, personally, I think 2021 was a bit more of a come down year for me, especially in the second half, where it was kind of like, okay, well, I've come a long way in my journey within crypto. I made all this money from investing in ETH early on, and then kind of like, I guess after ETH finished hitting its all-time high and came back down, it's kind of felt like just I've been cruising, right? I've been kind of like doing the refuel, still doing the newsletters, still keeping up with everything happening in the ecosystem. But I feel like we're in this kind of like holding pattern right now where it's kind of getting ready for the next leg up from here. So, and not just in the market, but in terms of like adoption as well. And it feels like so many things are coming at once. And 2022 is going to be big, I think. And actually, now that I think about it as well, I just reminded myself, another big theme of 2021, not the overall theme, but another big theme that I forgot to mention. By the way, I'm doing this all off the cuff. I haven't actually got any notes prepared for this. I'm literally just speaking as things come to me. So apologies if I like repeat myself or I forget things, but I'm just doing it because I feel like my videos are better when I just kind of like do it from stream of consciousness. But the other big theme was regulation. There was the first time that crypto was on the kind of like world stage in terms of regulation, and that was no more clearer than it was around the infrastructure bill that happened in the US, where the crypto provisions were actually holding up the infrastructure bill from going forward, and we made ourselves known. We made our presence known. And this falls into my my kind of like overall theme about how 2021 was the year that crypto kind of like crossed the point of no return, where haven't gone mainstream, but we've gone into kind of like the early adopter phase. We've gone in, we've gone geopolitical. Obviously, outside of the kind of like Ethereum land, we had Bitcoin with El Salvador making it legal tender. That was obviously a huge theme as well. But that I think fits into kind of like the government regulation, nation state stuff that's been going on all year. And there's been tons of regulatory talk. Obviously, there've been kind of like the SEC, yelling at people, yelling at teams, yelling at projects, just doing their, the absolute worst job ever, not protecting anyone. And then you had like the Congress kind of like debating the infrastructure bill and the crypto provisions holding it up. So that's been a very, very big theme in 2021 as well. And I expect it to continue to be a big theme. When you cross over the point of no return, when you go from being a little plaything that people can just ignore to people realizing that this isn't going away, that this is actually going to be a big deal, it's going to disrupt industries, it's going to change the world, you definitely are met with force, right? You're met with kind of like resistance from the incumbents. And they are going to resist. They're going to resist harder than what they are now. There are going to be countries around the world that they probably won't ban crypto, but they're going to come down hard on it. They're going to do things like ban you from or at least requiring KYC for you to withdraw crypto from an exchange to your address. This was floated in the US, didn't pass, but I believe some other countries are in the process of implementing these policies. That's all coming. And that's why I've said before, my two main things that I'm most interested within the crypto ecosystem in terms of like investment opportunities, especially layer 2 technologies and privacy technologies. But I'm not so bullish on privacy technologies such as like Zcash or Monero, like standalone blockchains. I'm more bullish on privacy tech that built on a blockchain, like a smart contract blockchain like Ethereum, that is able to kind of like enhance the experience, not be the sole product. I don't think I don't think the privacy blockchains are going to accrue any long-term value. You've already seen the price of ZEC. It's just done nothing. Monero, I'm not even sure where it is, but I'm sure it hasn't done much either. I think that there are privacy things you can invest in on Ethereum. There's an overlap between L2s and privacy as well, as I've discussed before, but I think that's going to become more and more prevalent as these regulations start ramping up, which unfortunately is the reality that we have to be met with. I mean, the internet went through this too. Like, you may think that a lot the internet kind of like just was adopted by everyone, the governments were happy with it, and nothing bad ever happened there, and nothing was ever kind of like banned or censored. But that's couldn't be further from the truth. There was a lot of clamping down on what you could do with the internet. I mean, look at piracy, for example. Obviously, pirating copyright materials is illegal, right? And it's, you're literally breaking the law if you're doing that. But the way they went about regulating it was kind of crazy. They literally started like banning these websites, even if the websites didn't host the content. They just kind of like pointed to it. They would do that. And then there was the whole net neutrality thing in the US, and basically there's a lot of kind of like censorship going on as well. And I mean, craziness, especially around when Trump was president on social media, like people saying, how can he say this? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, it goes against your policies. And social media didn't want to ban the president, things like that because of the repercussions. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on with the internet as well. And it's just natural for any technology that allows people to do whatever they want with it. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be heavier regulation than otherwise. And there's going to be a lot of resistance. So I think that's what I'm going to be looking for going into 2022 as well, is that level of kind of like resistance that we're going to be facing, especially as regulations ramp up around the world. Not so much maybe the US, because the US is a very big place. They seem to be, I guess, like okay right now. I think we've got a few people in politics on our side at this point, which is cool to see. But I think we're bribing the right people at this phase. Bribing, sorry, I should say donating to the right people and lobbying, right? I think I'm seeing that play out there. But that's definitely going to be a big theme going into 2022. Which, as I'm coming up on the 30-minute mark here, I do want to segue into some of my not so much predictions for 2022, but more just an outlook of what I see happening and why I think 2022 is going to be a super exciting year. So there's three main things I'm kind of like looking forward to. One is I think the market is going to do kind of like very well in 2022. I think that we've been kind of like in this range. We've been especially, I mean, when it comes to ETH, I don't know about most other assets, but when it comes to ETH, I think it's going to do very well. I think there's going to be a mania around L2s and the L2 tokens. I think L2s are going to take off in a really big way in 2022. And I think that the merge is, as I've mentioned plenty of times before, going to lead to a very, very big narrative shift for Ethereum on multiple fronts. The first front is that we're going to have a deflationary ETH all the time, as long as the Gwei price is like 10 or 20 Gwei or something like that. Last time I worked it out. It's going to be more deflationary than Bitcoin, which is going to be a narrative talking point, especially for normies and stuff like that. It's going to get Ethereum off proof of work and go into proof of stake, which is obviously a huge deal. It's going to significantly de-risk Ethereum for the more traditional investors, because they're going to be like, okay, well, this major upgrade is actually out of the way now, and it's done and it was successful. But now it's safer to invest. And that may seem crazy to you, but a lot of people think like this because they have to. I mean, there's a lot of traditional investors are regulated. They can't just like throw money into anything. They have to be careful about what they throw money into, and they have to weigh up all the risks, and that's how they size things. So it's going to be a significant de-risking event there. I mentioned the L2s as another thing there. And also I think that towards the end of 2022, I'm hoping the narrative changes around Ethereum scalability. I mean, I'm hoping this happens in the first half of 2022, but I think in the second half, because I think the first half, we're going to have a lot of these L2s doing tokens. There's going to be a lot of rapid growth of these L2s. A lot of people are going to use them. A lot of people are going to be really happy with them, and they're going to offer cheap fees. But then I actually think that we run the risk of them hitting their limits because a lot of these things are still very limited. They're not anywhere near their full capacity. They have training wheels on. A lot of them are still centralized. And I think that's going to be a counter narrative to Ethereum scalability because people are going to hit those limits and be like, what the hell? Like, I thought this was going to be cheaper. Why is it kind of getting expensive again? Blah, blah, blah. Then I think what's going to happen is the L2s are going to basically take their limits off or take their training wheels off or improve. And then the second half of 2022 will be, I think, like the steady state where people are like, okay, well, Ethereum can scale now. A lot of the new users aren't going to be going to Ethereum L1. We're going to hopefully have lots of centralized exchanges having bridges into these L2s, and that's all going to be well and good. So I really do think 2022 is going to be the year of the L2. If it's not, I fear that Ethereum, I think worst case scenario, if the L2s fail to gain traction in 2022, if people just aren't interested in using them, if they don't actually play it right, if they don't do the marketing right, they don't do the business development right, if they don't do tokens, I actually fear that Ethereum has a very real chance of losing its kind of like lead here. It really does hinge. I know I'm not really kind of like a bearish on Ethereum in general, but I think that the L2s, it's not enough just to, I mentioned this yesterday, it's not enough to just build it. Like, you need to incentivize people to go there. Go look at literally any TVL chart for any chain. It spikes as soon as there's liquidity mining rewards to be had, or as soon as there's token incentives there. And it's obvious why. People want to make money. They're going to go there, they're going to make their money, and there's going to be some sticky liquidity. It's the best marketing tool ever. A token is amazing. Obviously there's the downside to a token when it's not performing amazingly. It can kind of like make your community sour. It can make people not want to obviously purchase it anymore, and it can make your liquidity mining program not be as lucrative. But just generally, when a token is done right, when people have skin in the game, when there are rewards to be had, when they can use the products, it's just the best marketing tool ever. And as on flow of that, it's the best business development tool as well. So I really do think that if we don't get our ass into gear in 2022 in terms of like the L2s actually scaling Ethereum, we stand a very real risk of kind of like completely losing the narrative and people just kind of like getting sick of us saying, the L2s are coming, they're coming, and they're coming, and then kind of like just using the other chains and kind of like Ethereum losing its moat there. I think there's a very, very low chance of that happening. I think it's basically 0% chance, but that is the worst case scenario. And that's why I'm pushing so hard. I keep pushing the L2 teams, like trying to signal to them, do tokens, guys. Like, I know that you want to focus on building, but doing a token is part of building. Like, that's what it is in crypto. It's not like if you're a company in the traditional space, like a non-crypto space, and you wait like 7 years to IPO. It's not like that, because when you IPO, you're not doing liquidity mining for your products. It means if you get to an IPO, most of the time your product has actually already got a lot of traction, and the reason you're IPOing is because it's got a lot of traction, and your investors are like, oh well, it's time to go public, right? We want an exit. Tokens are a big part of the product within crypto. They're a big part of building. So don't think of it as kind of like a speculative vehicle. Don't think of it as just, oh, we have to do a token because our investors want us to do it, or because people want to degen speculate on it. They want to do that, yes, and that's what a lot of crypto currently is, but it's still the best marketing tool ever. It's the best way to build a community. It's the best way to get traction of things. So I really, really hope to see that play out into 2022, and I think it will. Honestly, ZK Sync, Arbitrum, I'm sure Optimism, they've all done the Starkware, they've done the Series Bs at this point. I think Starkware did its Series C as well. I don't imagine them going much further than that. I think the tokens are coming. I think they're coming very, very soon. ZK Sync said that's coming very, very soon. As I said, 3 to 6 months, I think they're all going to have a token. There's already some with tokens, right? Like Metis. There's a few other kind of like forks out there. And there's obviously Polygon as well with Matic and stuff like that. And there's a bunch of other bridge tokens too. That's another thing going into 2022. I think is going to be a big deal. Bridges, because of the fact that L2s, when they take off, bridges are going to be even more important. They're already pretty important, but they're going to kind of like tag along for the ride as well. So that's another big thing going into 2022 as well. But yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. I think I'm coming up on time here. So that's my thoughts on kind of like just recapping briefly 2021, all the major themes, what I expect going into 2022. I really do think it's going to be a great year for Ethereum, the network, and ETH, the asset. I think that we're going to get to $10,000 at least in 2022. I think we can go much further than that, but I think that's finally going to be the year where where he finally gets the $10,000 that I've been kind of like calling for since I think early 2019. So it's going to be a good like 3 years probably since that's happened there. But I think the most important thing for Ethereum is getting that merge done. Obviously, that's going to be probably the biggest event of the year in terms of a singular event for Ethereum. And I think the obviously the other biggest things are the L2 stuff, but if price is going up, everything becomes a big deal. I'm sure you've all noticed that. Like whenever the price is going up of an asset, everything a chain does or everything an ecosystem does is amazing. You can do no wrong. It's all good, guys. Like everything's bullish. But then when the price is going down, it's kind of like the opposite thing there. And this was especially felt in like 2018 and 2019, where everyone was fighting because it was a bear market and everyone was like depressed and sad. And then the bull market came roaring back and everyone's like, oh my God, like this is awesome. Like we have so much money. And then actually, I think the last 6 months has been back to basically what we were like in the bear market, because sideways is probably the worst. I think sideways price action is worse than a bear market, because at least in a bear market, you know that the price is going down and you know that that's probably going to continue like that for a while. In a sideways market, you got no idea what's going on. You're like, oh, is it going to go up now? Oh, no, it's going back down again. Oh, wait, no, it's going back up. Oh, wait, no, it's going down. It's just this constant kind of like yo-yo, and it's really nauseating and it's really, really frustrating. I think that's what leads to a lot of toxicity as well. People just get super frustrated and they take it out on whoever they can as well there. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this special episode of The Refuel, the last one of the year. I hope all of you had a great 2021. I know a few of you have reached out before and said to me that you really enjoy the refuel, really enjoy my newsletter, and that it's changed your lives actually. So really humbled to hear that this year. I'm going to obviously keep doing the refuel into 2022. No plans on stopping it there. I'm going to try and do more standalone videos too. I really, really want to do more standalone videos because I still think that there's so much things out there that people have no idea about. I mean, people still think the merge is going to lower gas fees. I really, really want to kill that narrative before it kind of like bites us in the ass once the merge happens and fees don't go down, because I can already picture it in my head. The amount of FUD that there's going to be, regardless of what anyone says, there's just going to be heaps of FUD that happens after that, unfortunately. But I hope the L2s are in full swing by then, so people don't even care that much at that point. But we'll have to see. But yeah, so I guess like Happy New Year. I'll see you all in the new year for a big 2022. Hope you guys have something fun planned for your New Year's Eve. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, but I'm definitely going to be taking some time tomorrow night just off. So there won't be a refuel tomorrow, obviously, or anything like that. There won't be a newsletter either, but there will be on Monday. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in this year, and I'll catch you all next year. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next year. Thanks everyone.